This entire series has explored one central idea: that reality may not be exactly what it appears to be. We question the system. We question power. We questioned fear, control, and perception. But every question leads to one final threshold. Not who controls the world, but what defines the limits of human existence itself. Because if our reality is shaped by invisible structures, then our identity, our choices, even our sense of self may be built inside paradigms we rarely notice. In this final episode, we go deeper into the paradigms that define what it means to be human, into the hidden keys to real power, and into the most misunderstood concept of all: ascension. Not as fantasy, but as transformation. If you're into hidden truths and deeper questions, subscribe. Every human being believes they experience reality directly, but they don't. What we call reality is filtered through invisible frameworks that shape how we interpret everything. These frameworks are called paradigms. A paradigm is not an object, not a law, not a visible structure. It is a mental model so deeply accepted that it becomes invisible. It defines what feels normal, what feels possible, what feels absurd, what feels true. Without a paradigm, reality would feel chaotic. With a paradigm, reality feels stable. But stability has a price. Because paradigms do not only organize the world, they limit it. What is a paradigm? In simple terms, a paradigm is the lens through which you interpret existence. It tells you what success means, what failure means, what is realistic, what is impossible, what is valuable, what is meaningless. You rarely question it because you were born inside it. Feels like reality itself. But it is not reality. It is an interpretation of reality. Example 1. Time. Modern humans experience time as linear, scarce, constantly running out. I don't have time. Time is money. Time is against us. But time is not experienced this way in all cultures or states of consciousness. Children lose track of time. Meditators experience time distortion. Moments of crisis slow perception. Which raises a strange question. If time were purely objective, why would perception of it change so dramatically? Because what we experience is not just time. It is the paradigm of time. Example 2. Work and value. Most people accept one equation without ever consciously agreeing to it. Your value equals your productivity. Busy equals important. Rest equals laziness. Stillness equals waste. Yet biologically and psychologically, humans are not designed for constant output. Creativity needs emptiness. Clarity needs silence. But the paradigm defines worth through performance. So exhaustion becomes normal. Disconnection becomes normal. Example 3. Identity. People believe identity is who they are. But most identities are constructed from roles, professions, social feedback. Cultural expectations remove the job, status, validation. And many people feel lost. Not because they lost themselves, but because their paradigm of self was external. Why paradigms are almost impossible to see. A paradigm is invisible from inside. Like a fish unaware of water. You cannot easily detect the structure that defines your normality. Because everything you judge, reject, or accept is evaluated through it. Even rebellion can exist inside a paradigm. Even freedom can be predefined. Paradigms as systems of control. This is where the concept becomes unsettling. If paradigms define what humans consider possible, then influencing paradigms is more powerful than controlling behavior. You do not need to force obedience if you define what feels unthinkable. You do not need censorship if people self-filter reality. You do not need visible chains if the limits exist inside perception. The most dangerous paradigm, perhaps the most powerful paradigm of all, is this: the belief that the current human condition is final. That this is simply how life is. Stress, fear, distraction, endless pursuit, unquestioned, unchallenged, normalized. The crack in the paradigm, but sometimes something strange happens. A person steps back. They notice their thoughts instead of being ruled by them. They question what always felt obvious. They sense distance between themselves and the system. This is not yet awakening. It is the fracture of the paradigm. And once a paradigm cracks, reality itself begins to shift. Humans do not live only inside systems of power. They live inside systems of perception. Invisible architectures of belief that define the boundaries of experience long before any external control is needed. If paradigms define the limits of human experience, then one question becomes unavoidable. Can those limits be transcended? And if they can, what does true power actually mean? Because power may not be control over the world, but control over perception, over reaction, over the self. Humanity has always been obsessed with power. Power over nature. Power over others. Power over systems. Power over reality itself. But what if our understanding of power has been fundamentally incomplete? Because most people define power in external terms. Money, status, authority, technology, control. Yet history shows something strange. Those who appear powerful are often still controlled by fear, by perception, by the reactions of others. Which raises a deeper question. What is power that cannot be taken away? The illusion of external power is conditional. It depends on circumstances. Wealth can disappear. Status can collapse. Authority can be removed. Systems can fall. Anything that relies on external structures is inherently unstable. Even entire empires have proven temporary. So can something unstable truly be called ultimate power? The hidden layer of power. There is another type of power. Less visible, less dramatic, but far more fundamental. The power over perception. The power over interpretation. The power over reaction. Because between every event and every response there is a space. And inside that space lies a choice. Most humans never notice this. They react automatically. Stimulus emotion reaction. Headline fear. Opinion anger. Uncertainty anxiety. Predictable. Programmable. Attention as power. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. Because attention determines experience. Whatever holds your attention shapes your reality. Fear holds attention. Outrage holds attention. Desire holds attention. Entire industries compete for it. Media, technology, politics, advertising. Not to inform you, but to occupy perception. A distracted mind is easily guided. A captured attention is silent obedience. Reaction versus response. Ultimate power begins when reaction becomes response. Reaction is automatic. Response is chosen. Reaction is driven by conditioning. Response is driven by awareness. When a human being can observe emotion without being ruled by it, they step outside the most basic control mechanism. Because systems predict reactions. They cannot fully predict awareness. Emotional sovereignty. A person who cannot regulate emotion is externally governable. Fear them, they freeze. Anger them, they attack. Stress them, they comply. But a person who remains internally stable cannot be easily pushed into predictable behavior. This is why fear is the most powerful instrument of control. And why inner stability is the most underestimated form of power. The power to redefine meaning. Meaning is not fixed. Events do not carry inherent interpretation. Humans assign meaning. Failure can destroy a person or transform them. Silence can feel empty or liberating. Uncertainty can feel terrifying or full of possibility. The ability to consciously redefine meaning is a form of psychological power rarely discussed. The ultimate shift at the deepest level. Ultimate power is not dominance. It is non-dependence. Not needing external validation to feel real. Not needing constant stimulation to feel alive. Not needing fear to feel safe. Because dependence is the foundation of control, and autonomy is the foundation of freedom. Why this connects to everything: if paradigms define perceived limits, then power is the ability to step beyond those limits. Not by force, but by awareness, by mastering perception, by mastering reaction, by mastering attention. And once power is no longer defined by money, status, or control over others, another idea begins to emerge. Ascension. Not as an escape from reality, but as a transformation of how reality itself is experienced. For centuries, the word ascension has been wrapped in mythology, spiritual texts, religious imagery, mystical interpretations. It has been described as rising to higher realms, leaving the physical world, transcending the body. But what if ascension is something far more subtle, far more immediate, and far more real? Not a departure from reality, but a transformation of how reality is perceived. The misunderstood idea: most people imagine ascension as an event. Something dramatic. Something supernatural. Something that happens to a chosen few. But consciousness does not transform through spectacle. It transforms through awareness. Ascension in this context is not about going somewhere else. It is about seeing from a different level of mind. The prison that has no walls: if paradigms define perceived limits, and if perception defines experience, then the greatest confinement is not physical. It is perceptual. A human being can live inside invisible assumptions. About self, about fear, about possibility, about reality without ever recognizing the structure. Ascension begins when those structures become visible. The shift: nothing external needs to change. The world remains the same, but the observer changes. Fear is still present but no longer absolute. Uncertainty still exists but no longer paralyzing. Thoughts still arise but no longer mistaken for identity. This is the beginning of ascension. Ascension is clarity. Ascension is not escape. It is clarity. Seeing how reactions are triggered, how perception is shaped, how identity is constructed, how fear distorts interpretation. Without clarity, the mind lives inside narratives. With clarity, the mind sees narratives. From reaction to presence, a reactive mind lives in survival mode. Constant anticipation, constant resistance, constant tension. Presence interrupts this cycle, not by force, but by awareness of the present moment as it is. In presence, fear loses momentum. Conditioning loses automatic power. The collapse of psychological gravity: most humans are pulled by invisible gravity. Approval, status, fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of uncertainty. Ascension is the gradual weakening of this gravity. Not indifference, but freedom from compulsive identification. Why this is the ultimate transformation: external revolutions change systems. Internal revolutions change perception. And perception defines reality as it is experienced. A person who ascends does not leave the world. They stop experiencing it through distortion. Ascension and power: ultimate power is not domination. It is lucidity. Not being ruled by unconscious fear. Not being driven by automatic narratives. Not being defined by external structures. Ascension is the stabilization of awareness. The final paradox: nothing may change in your external life. Yet everything changes in how life is experienced. The same world, a different mind. The deepest truth of ascension: ascension is not becoming something else. It is remembering what you are without conditioning. Before fear. Before identity constructs. Before imposed paradigms. Maybe the system was never the true prison. Maybe the real limits were the ones we never questioned. The paradigms we inherited. The fears we absorbed. The reactions we called ours. His power was never only about control. It was about perception. And freedom was never only outside the world. It was inside awareness. Not when reality changes, but when you see it clearly.